Hey there, welcome to open class number 100. I can't believe it. It's already episode 100 of open class. That's amazing. It feels like just very recent that we changed the name to open class, but very excited having you here. It's a pretty ambitious program here. I think there are 6 or 7 messages that I hope to go over today. As always, nothing here is medical advice, just general thoughts and questions, general thoughts that I hope will help anyone out there that is tuning in. So with that said, let us just jump in here and look at some questions. We have the first one, which is from Edwin. Let's read this. Hi, Daniel. I'm a 30-year-old who's been dealing with insomnia for 2 months. Your YouTube channel has been an invaluable resource for me and has helped me in the past week since I discovered it. Very glad to hear this. One video that really stood out to me was Ask Daniel 51 from May 29th of last year. In that episode, Cora's symptoms, and especially her precipitating factor, sleep paralysis, was basically the same story for me. In my case, it was preceded by a stressful month and admittedly some sleep deprivation. I freaked out after I wasn't able to get sleepy the whole night following the sleep paralysis I experienced after taking a nap earlier that day. Just hearing Cora's story and the response you provided along with Mike made me hopeful. I've gotten sleep. Although it's been unrestful, I've implemented a sleep restriction window of 6 hours for the last week, of which I believe I get around 5 hours of sleep, waking up once or twice a night. Thankfully, I've gotten some stability in my schedule. I'm hopeful I will improve, but my main concern is regarding sleep drive. When I do go to bed, I usually fall asleep after about 15 minutes. However, I don't experience that drowsiness. In your experience, talking to others, is this something that comes back eventually? I think I just really missed that drowsiness, heavy eyes feeling that indicated I needed to sleep. Do you think I should stay up until I truly can't stay awake? Thanks for all your help, Edwin. Edwin, really glad that you sent this message. These are some very common and important questions. And before I forget, if you go to Google and you Google insomnia, insight, Bermuda Triangle effect, then you'll get to a video, and I forget the name of it right now. But actually, let me check on my phone if I have it here. If I have it saved here, it'll be really quick. No, it wasn't there. So again, but there we go with the Bermuda Triangle effect. And basically, the Houdini effect, which we can go over here very briefly, is when you are, you're feeling sleepy, but at the moment you lay your head on the pillow, you feel wide awake, and that's simply because when you've had insomnia, it's because the brain has started to think that being awake is a threat or dangerous. And then the moment you actually want to sleep and the brain thinks, what if you can't sleep? It's basically like, what if wakefulness happens? That moment you're wide awake. It feels like the Houdini, like the sleepiness just vanished, like it disappeared. And it is very, very natural. It's just a sign that, your safety system, your brain is working, because if you're about to fall asleep and you remember that, oh no, I was about to pick up my friend in the airport, then you're supposed to be wide awake, right? Same thing with that Houdini effect, but it's just a confusion in the brain that being awake is dangerous. Now, when you sort of lose that sleepiness feeling for a long period of time, I just call that the Bermuda Triangle effect, but it's the same thing. It's basically that the brain thinks that being awake is dangerous, and it keeps you in the state of like hyperarousal and hyper alertness, a little kind of like a safety mode, if you will. And then what happens is that you do not perceive feeling sleepy. It's nothing wrong with the sleep drive or the sleep system or anything like that. It's just that you don't perceive sleepiness. It can seem kind of odd, like I've been awake for a long time, but I'm just not sleepy. Nothing strange or unusual at all. So, and your story overall is a very, very typical one. You have an event where the brain starts thinking, for some reason, it starts identifying being awake at night as a threat. Then the more you try to escape the threat, the more things to do, the more you're teaching the brain that there is something to be concerned of, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm super glad you found the channel. And we'll see this question actually later on in this episode as well, of like, what should I do? Should I kind of go to bed later? Or how can I find that sleepiness feeling again? And that's a little bit of a rabbit hole there, because if you start being like, okay, I have to find that sleepiness feeling. How can I get that sleepiness feeling? What can I do to get it? I'm going to really look out for it. I'm going to watch my eyelids. Are they feeling heavy? Are they feeling sleepy? Oh, as you can see, this becomes a rabbit hole. So I think it's much better to do the set it and forget it. You're like 6 hours. I think I've come to believe that for most people, that's a little bit, that can induce some pressure. So I personally think for most people, it makes sense to do like I'm going to get up at 6 and I'm going to stop checking the time at 10 or stop checking the time at 11, something like that, which is not too narrow of a window, which can make you pressured, right? But not knowing the time, stop checking the time. I think that for most people is really helpful. And then just not look for that sleepiness feeling, but like go to bed, just sort of like to rest your eyes, to maybe read a book, to do something you enjoy, and then let sleep happen when it happens. That I think is a much better way. But I hope that answered the question, Edwin. If not, just let us know. And well done on all the learning and contextualizing. Very happy you found the channel again. All right. So with that said, we'll go over to the next message, which is from Selena. And this is a really, really inspiring message. I hope you will find it really helpful. So let's read this. Hello, Daniel. I wanted to give you and everybody in this channel an update. You answered one of my questions in an open class 87, and I'm very grateful for your response. My insomnia started in February 2021. I experienced lots of sleepless nights and anxiety. I quickly started searching the web, and the monster began to grow each day. I came across your channel in March, and it helped tremendously. But with all that I learned through your channel, I still didn't feel confident, and I needed a little more help. I purchased your book, Set It and Forget It, which is so educational and helpful. My thoughts began to change ever since I read your book. I also stumbled across a video you have with Trevor. This is Trevor Youngquist. I decided to join his program, Liberated Sleep, and it completely changed my thoughts towards insomnia. I have learned how to be mindful and caring towards myself. I'm finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm no longer afraid of the night. I no longer think as much about sleep during the day. I have learned to fully accept the present moment and see the value of life even when it's not pleasant. I'm no longer at war with my thoughts, and I'm able to sleep well. I will forever be grateful for your channel and Trevor's program. I still sometimes watch your videos, but only because I enjoy them, not because I feel desperate to find the answer like I used to. Thank you once again for giving us hope and sharing your wisdom with us through your videos. And to anyone struggling with right now with insomnia, I wish to give you hope with my recovery. Hashtag, we're all in this together. Hashtag, you got this. Selena, I'm so glad for, so thankful and glad that you decided to share this. Means a lot. I know a lot of times when you're doing better, you kind of just want to forget about the whole the whole time there where you struggle with sleep, which can create this narrative that only people who struggle or kind of stay in the community or something like that. So it's so helpful again when somebody decides, I'm going to share this with everyone. And so I'm super grateful for it. And I actually asked Selena if she wanted to be a podcast guest. No pressure if you hear this, Selena, but I asked her. We'll see if she wants to share the story in more detail. But really glad to hear this. All right. Lisa, a little bit similar one, but much shorter, says, "Hi, Daniel. I just wanted to say thank you for your work. It has fully and completely helped reclaiming my joyous, wonderful, beautiful sleep. You're a diamond in the rough of crappy sleep advice, Lisa." Thanks so much, Lisa. Really means a lot to hear this, and I'm so glad that the channel has helped. So glad, really. All right, Aaron says, "Hi, Coach Daniel. I started having chronic insomnia in March. The first week was horrible. Some nights I had 0 hours of sleep. Then I came across your channel. I learned about sleep. Things got much better. However," okay, we're March, April now. "In mid-April, my work from home period ended and I had to go back to the office with regular working hours. I started to feel anxious, started to have trouble sleeping, and ended up having 5 to 6 hours per night. Some nights, when I anticipate some physical activities for the next day, like hiking, I'll become more stressed about sleep and end up having 0 to 3 hours of sleep. I ended up canceling the plan, which made me more anxious about sleep. How do you think I can overcome this? Thanks a lot." Anytime, Aaron. And actually, this is very timely because something I thought about today, I actually talked with a client about this today, is I haven't found a better name for this yet, but so far I'm just calling it like confusion success, or like, yeah, what I want to convey there is that there also often is this confusion about why you slept better initially. And so what happens is, to kind of give a general story, someone, like in Aaron's case here, started having trouble sleeping in March. What happens there, as we know, is there's some kind of stress, or you sleep little, the brain starts to think there's a threat. You start to try to get away from the threat. And then what happens is you found the channel here, let's say, and you learn a lot of things. And what happens is that, the brain starts to see that there is no threat, there is no danger, there is no problem, and then you sleep with no struggle, right? But here's the thing. When something has landed on the brain's like safety radar once, then those thought patterns and kind of the safety mechanism in the brain can still be on the lookout a little bit, right? Can still be a little bit worried. It's kind of like, okay, this seems okay for now, but I'm still going to look out for wakefulness at night. That's a potential threat, right? So things are going well. And then something happens, like you have to go back to work or something else. There's things you have to do during the following day. And then, you're a little bit about, some part of your brain goes like, what if you can sleep again? What else? There's some change. And sure enough, when the brain thinks there's a threat again, starts kind of like not wanting to be awake, starting to like try to protect sleep and preserve sleep, then you have trouble again, right? And now the confusion becomes that it seems like when you did better a month ago, it was because you found this channel, you found this teaching, and you did something. And now you're trying to do the same thing again, but now it doesn't help. And the confusion there is like, finding the channel led you to a place where you were actually more okay with being willing to be awake at night. You were more willing to have a little trouble sleeping, and that's always true, because when you're not willing to have it, when you try to protect your sleep by any means, you will not sleep well. But when you start letting go and being like, okay, if I don't sleep so much tonight, that's all right, I'm willing to be awake, that's when you do better. And the confusion, again, I'm just going to repeat it one more time, is that you think that you did something and why isn't it working now, when in reality it was that you went in the direction of like being more okay with having some trouble sleeping. That's what led you to do well the first time. And of course, that is always what leads you to do well. And the thing is, when you're in your situation, Aaron, is that you've already seen the magic of being courageous. You've already seen the magic of being kind of less attached. You've already seen that magic. And when you see it again and you approach things the same way, then you have gotten past what I call a speed bump. You've had trouble sleeping, the struggle sort of faded away, you have some more struggle again, and then you get to the other side of it, and then things get easier and easier, because then you're less afraid of having this kind of like speed bump, aka setback, again. And you also you made a very good point there, Aaron, which was canceling an event. I think never is helpful, because if you cancel it, then it's like you did something to protect your sleep. And whenever you try to protect your sleep, you're teaching the brain that sleep is fragile and it should be protected, which leads to preoccupation and worry, and you sleep less well. And you also canceled something. So you kind of like, you ceded agency, I call it. Like you kind of gave up agency. You gave up some kind of control of your own life. And so when you do that, your life kind of becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and you become more and more afraid. So that's a very important teaching point. So next time when there's something going on, you might just want to kind of find that courage and just say, yeah, sure, I'll come. I'll stay up with you late, or I'll go hiking with you, even if I, and even if I don't sleep much, that still gives you the opportunity to show yourself that I can still go on a hike, even if I slept almost nothing. I can still do that. And then a lot of the fear goes away. So I think those were the main teaching points here, Aaron. Hope this made sense. And how do I think I can overcome this? Same way you did the first time. Just seeing that there's no threat, being courageous, being willing to be awake at night, etc. That is always the way. All right, let's continue here. AI says, hi, I suddenly had insomnia one night in May 19. It's still going on now, but even worse. Before someday I can't fall asleep, but it's getting worse and worse until now my brain won't fall asleep anymore. I'm just awake all day, all night. Before, the only thing that helped me sleep a little was trazodone, but I have vivid dreams. Now, even trazodone won't help me sleep on any night. I'm so concerned if I have fatal insomnia. I'm scared I'll die without any sleep. Could you please help me and tell me what's wrong with my brain and myself? Thank you. AI, I'm sorry to hear this, but I want to share with you right away that, first of all, nothing's a medical device here. Anyone concerned about your health, talk to your doctor. That said, we have this question almost every open class episode. There's somebody concerned that they have a fatal insomnia. And so kind of the first thing I want to say is you can, in the description of this video or any recent video, there is a whole playlist on fatal insomnia that you can study. And I think the most important teaching point, I think, is that fatal insomnias are not insomnias. So far, the fatal familial one, what I understand from that one is that there can be some sort of like struggle with sleep, something that maybe to some degree resembles insomnia, but again, that's familial. So you would know if somebody in your family has this, then you could be at risk. If nobody in your family has this, well, then that's not something that happens, right? And now the sporadic form, which is the one most people are worried about because they don't have any family history, that I've never came across anything that indicates that there's any insomnia there. Meaning insomnia is when you're struggling with sleep, like I just can't sleep, it's not happening, why isn't it happening? You're pondering, you're wondering, you're experimenting, you're trying to figure it out. That's insomnia. Versus sporadic fatal insomnia or fatal familial insomnia, where it's just a reduction in the amount of sleep, and the kind of like, if you study the quality of sleep, it's like kind of erratic. It's kind of like a 6-week-old baby. Like you can't really tell what's awake or asleep, but there's not any emotional connection to it. So to me, when there's anxiety and fear, then to me that strongly signals that there is insomnia, classic insomnia. And when there's a lack of that, when somebody is not worried, actually has really no clue what's going on because they have so much neurological problems, and maybe when other people think there's something wrong, but you don't even know that to me would be more concerning for some kind of neurodegenerative condition. So I think that's the most important. I think check out that playlist. I think that can be really helpful, and just stay in touch and let us know how things go. Okay, let's take a look at the next question here, which is from Anon, who said, "Hi, Daniel. So I started to take Ashwagandan to help. After a week, I noticed I'm sleeping better. Up to now, nothing has helped me, including strong medications. If you remember, I used to have several sleepless nights a week, and when I did sleep, it was broken 3 hours. I now sleep a broken 6 hours for the last week. However, since the last 2 weeks, I'm feeling very drowsy during the day. I can't keep my eyes open, but can't sleep during the day. I'm scared. Have I now got myself hypersomnia? When I was on strong meds, I never felt drowsy. It's very debilitating. I could do more when I was hardly sleeping." Again, like nothing is medical advice, and always talk to your doctor when you're concerned about your health. To me, what's important is the following: that how you feel in terms of like how sleepy you are or how alert you are, it really is determined by hyperarousal. When somebody is really in this hyper alert, sort of like beware, there may be a threat out there, that state, which often comes from the fear of being awake, then you often don't perceive sleepiness whatsoever. You can actually sleep almost nothing, right? And still function during the day because that hyper arousal just like keeps you going. It's not pleasant. It's like it's kind of nervous, unpleasant alertness, but still you function really well. Now, when there for some reason is less fear, then the hyperarousal comes down, and then you can feel the sleepiness that sort of was there all the time, but it was just masked by the hyperarousal, and you can feel really drowsy during the day, which can be concerning because it's like, wait a minute, I'm sleeping more, but I feel more drowsy, more sleepy during the day. This can't be right, but it's totally normal, totally typical, nothing strange or unusual at all. Now, something that I think is also helpful to know is that medications, the way I see it, medications and supplements and things of that nature, they quote unquote work by delegation. It's when you take something, or let's back up and say, trouble sleeping comes from trying really hard to sleep. When you want it, you crave it, you're trying so hard to sleep, that's when sleep doesn't happen. So anything that takes you away from trying will be helpful. So when you take a medication or a pill or a supplement, and you think, good, this will take care of sleep for me, I don't have to do any work, this will take care of it for me, then you're trying less to sleep, and sleep happens much easier. But it's not like whatever chemical is in the supplement or pill that helps. It's the delegation. It's the act of delegating sleep, not trying to do it yourself, just delegating it. But in reality, what you're delegating to is, you think you're delegating it to the medication, but you're really delegating it to yourself. It's always the brain, the body that produces sleep. But it can be a little confusing when you think it's the supplement or the medication that's doing it, because eventually, there comes that time where you're taking whatever it is and you didn't sleep, and it seems like, oh, it stopped working. But it wasn't that. It was just that you no longer delegated to it. So I think that explains a lot of things that can seem a little confusing. All right. So very well, Anon. I hope that made sense. And we'll go to our last question, which is from Nelly, who says, for a week now, I've been sleeping a little better. And the nights I'm sleeping, I tend to fall asleep a little after 10. But I'm up a little before 4 a.m. Should I try to stretch my bedtime to 11, I think 11 p.m. and see if it helps me wake up a little later? Please advise. I'm so desperate right now. Nelly, I'm glad that you're sleeping a little better. And, I think that's actually a great place to start here, because whenever we sleep better, it's always, in my opinion, it's always because we are less afraid, because if somebody is really, really scared and not willing to be awake at all, I just cannot be awake tonight, that person, even if they are really, really sleepy, or if they were sleepy, or if they've been up for a long time, will not sleep well, because that hyper arousal is there. So when you start sleeping better, it is because you're learning things that are teaching your brain that there's no danger. Being awake is safe. It's safe being awake. And where I'm going with this is to say that trying to make yourself more sleepy leads to more hyperarousal, because you're trying again. You're trying to make something happen. So the key is always to go that gentle path of trying less. And so I think something that can help is not so much to try to push your bedtime later so that you sleep more or sleep later in the day, but rather doing things like learning maybe a bit more, understanding, just learning on this channel so you understand everything very, very, very well. And then going timeless, really helps. You just don't know the time from, for example, 10 p.m. You just kind of stop knowing what time it is. You may have an alarm set for 6 a.m. or something like that, so that you don't feel the need to check the time overnight. And then when you're awake at night, you make it meaningful. You have something prepared, maybe a book, maybe a podcast, something like that. And you just take that as an opportunity to teach the brain that even if this is not pleasant, I'm safe. I'm safe right now. There's no harm. Nothing happens. I feel anxious. I feel tired. I feel, those things, but I'm safe. And maybe even that time of night can be enjoyable. And when that happens, when the brain sees that, oh, there's no threat, no danger, you're safe, even when you're awake at night, that's when you start sleeping well, you're sleeping longer, and everything gets easier. And so it's not like you don't need to make yourself sleepy, push yourself. It's rather the opposite, like teach yourself to let go and teach the brain that there's no threat. So hope that helped, Nelly. And we have live with us, Jarl Wiegand, says, hello, couldn't sleep. Glad you are on. I'm glad you're here also, Jarl. I was kind of wrapping up here, but I'm glad you caught this and just hang in there. And when you in one way, I say this to myself too, like I couldn't sleep or something like that. I didn't, but in reality, it's more like I didn't sleep. Because sleep is not a skill, it's not an ability, it's not something we can do. So in a way, it's not like you couldn't sleep, you just didn't sleep. And that can help, because then when we don't think of it as like a skill or something we can achieve or a goal like that, then we can be so much gentler on ourselves. I couldn't sleep can imply that there's something I can't do. I should be able to do this, but I didn't sleep. It can lead to there's nothing wrong with me. Now I can tune into this live or do something else I like to do, and then sleep will just happen by its own, on its own. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. If you have any questions, then you can head over to thesleepcoachschool.com. And I think if you go there right now, the banner up there may be different, but it's going to be back to leave a question soon. And of course, if you want to work with myself, if you need a little bit more help and guidance on your path to sleeping well, then you can find out how to work with me there as well. So that said, look forward to having you back here real soon. And until then, be well.